Hello and welcome back to another episode of Under Center with Jake Russell. I'm your host and voice of Fighting Tiger football, Collin Sheffield. Alongside me, as always, head coach Jake Russell. Coach, the Tigers get a big win over St. Francis, a playoff team from last year. They were number 24 in the preseason ranking, so a top 25 matchup to start your year. But I first kind of want to start with a little bit of a softball, kind of warm you up a little bit back into the seat. I hear you all watched 3 movies on the way down, or way up, up to Fort Wayne, about a 5-6 hour ride. It was Top Gun, Maverick, and what was the other one? Creed, right?
Yeah, so on the defensive bus, they just had the DVD player, so they watched movies all the way up. The offensive bus was very fortunate to have Coach Lewis's Roku stick, so we actually watched the SEC documentary on Netflix and then had a lot of football to watch on the way back. So we'll probably be fighting over that Roku stick the rest of the year now that the defense figured out that we had it on our bus. So we'll probably just have to get another one because that was a really good deal. But yeah, I know they watched Top Gun was one of them, and of course a lot of our guys had never even heard of Top Gun, obviously weren't alive when it came out, and so it's probably a really good movie kind of for the guys to see for the first time, and they were definitely talking about it when we stopped to eat.
Man, sounds like we need to be on the offensive bus. That sounds like it's the way to go. Well, so the Tigers get a big win, 31-28. At one point, it was 28-7. Things they got into their up-tempo offense, and they started moving down the field and building up a bit of momentum. There were a couple wonky plays in there every now and again, but the Tigers were able to come out with a win against a good team on the road, and that's all you can ask for in week 1.
I think everything you would want as a head coach and as a coaching staff in a first game we got. One, you got the win, which is very important. Road win against a team that will end up with a lot of wins, probably competing to be in the playoffs again. They're a really good team, great quarterback, really solid defensively, all those things. 2 is you got to practice some very unique game situations, right? Really 2 different Hail Marys on defense, and we practice that every week. But when you do it in practice, it's usually on air. Sometimes we let the scout guys go out there and do it, but you never can really simulate what it's like during a game when the game really is on the line, right? You mentioned we're up 3 touchdowns. We feel like we're getting ready to pull away and dominate, which was our goal, and all of a sudden they're throwing a Hail Mary with a chance to win the game. And so then it gets real, right? Then it feels different than the Thursday where you practice Hail Mary throughout the week, each week. And then thirdly, we got a lot of great things to correct and work on through our tape. If we had won 45-10, which we very easily could have and felt like we should have, right? Yeah. Then we'd all be patting each other on the back and talking about how good we are, and we'd probably be really struggling to get our guys to realize that, hey, we've got a lot of things to work on and a lot of things to improve on. And it was kind of a very unique feeling after the game where our guys almost it was kind of, you had to convince them, like, hey, be happy. We got a great win against a really, really good opponent in an away atmosphere on an overnight trip, as Coach Atwood mentioned earlier this week, in a playoff type atmosphere. And so, it was very unique where our guys almost felt like we lost at the end of the day, but we got everything we wanted out of that first game.
So let's talk about your guys. We'll start with the offense. Jet Engel comes in for his first time at Campbellsville. He goes out, he throws for 253 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. What do you feel like you got in this guy?
Great competitor. He was actually battling some cramping and actually in his throwing hand. I'd never seen that before. At halftime, it started to hit him, and he's kind of, getting nervous about the situation, and we're making our adjustments and everything like that. And he still went out there the whole second half battling that. Again, anytime a quarterback goes on the road against a ranked team and leads your team to victory, that's a big deal. There's a lot of things that he's going to improve on extremely fast. Had to keep reminding myself that he's only been here for 30 days, only been in this offense for 30 days. And while he had a great individual season last year, he's now learning how to go against the best competition in the nation. He's going to be in the best conference in the nation. Our conference had a great week. Overall, they're stronger than ever. And, I'm really, really excited, obviously, as his quarterback's coach, to see his improvement from week 1 to 2. And the surrounding cast played awesome as well. The offensive line was great. I mean, that was huge. You know, obviously when you lose some starters, you've got some young guys playing, some guys that have increased role now that were rotational guys are now starters. Couldn't have been more pleased with how they played up front.
And for a new quarterback, maybe no more important is the type of skill players that he has around him. Trey Bass has a great day, 93 all-purpose yards, 2 touchdowns for him. He got things started, kept things going, kept those legs churning. He's just a different animal when you put the ball in his hands.
Yeah, Trey is Trey. That's what he's been doing here for going on 4 years now. Obviously, our cellist, you know, getting in rhythm now, having a full offseason with us has been huge. Josh Traylor coming back provided a spark, and we've still got 3 or 4 more running backs over there that could go in and do the same thing. Our running back group is awesome. They've taken their work and their you know, kind of commitment and all that stuff to the next level, and Trey has led that. He's been a great leader in our program. And them and the offensive line feeding off each other, and then them also being a weapon in the passing game. You know, I've told them that our goal for the backs is to have 60 catches in the first 10 games, and we didn't get enough. I think we only had 3 out of the backfield, and there should have been a couple more. But yeah, it was really good, and that running back group is going to be a huge factor for us, and we're going to be able to play multiple guys every week.
Your wide receiver group, you got 2 transfer wide receivers that led your team combined. I think over 55% of your receiving yards were flowing through those 2. They had outstanding games, a lot of speed, and a lot of physicality.
Yeah, physicality is huge for the receivers. We ask our receivers to be physical, to block, to do all those things. You know, they end up playing a lot more man than we had seen, you know, last year in their last 3 games that we scouted. And obviously Troy and Roland on the outside as the starters there both had really good games. We will continue to expect more from both of those guys to just be weapons all year. And now that other teams know who they are and they see them on film, because they're a little bit of a mystery probably for game 1, they're gonna be scouting that. And to have both of those guys playing well makes it really hard to take away both sides of the field. But all the receiving core, I thought did a great job, and we've got a lot of depth there as well. And that's the great thing about college football right now is we obviously lose, you know, both of our outside starting receivers and a guy like Dre, who's been a starter for multiple years and all conference multiple years, and you're able to go out and grab a couple guys that are immediate impact guys and have done a great job for us.
And we'll touch on the defense really quickly. Of course, you have only 4 returning starters from last season, so it's an overhaul a little bit of your defense. But some impact players. Darius Willis gets an interception. Chase Maynard comes in. He forces a fumble, recovers, has a great game. Everybody was flying around the field, got some really big stops in some key situations.
That's an extremely tough offense to go against. Not only really good quarterback play, but the tempo that they play with is just a really unique thing. But as our defensive staff has been saying, this is great preparation because I think we have a couple of new offensive coordinators in our conference who are going to run that. Chase and Darius are great examples of what we've built in our program, where those guys got here in the spring, and both of those guys have found themselves on the leadership council that we put together each year. And so defense played great. You know, Coach Ford has the highest expectation and standard of any coach I've ever been around. So he's going to convince those guys that, you know, they've got so far to go, which they do, and we have extremely high expectations from our defense, but they still got 3 turnovers. I think we still ended up with 3 sacks, and they did enough for us to get the win. And obviously both sides improvement could have stretched that out and really had a dominant victory, which is really what we desire. But at the end of the day, nobody's going to ask you at the end of the year, did you dominate, right? It's just you're 1-0, and that's the goal.
Well, Coach, we'll let you take a break. When we come back, we'll sit down with Coach Atwood here on Under Center with Jake Russell.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear. Call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha 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 ha.
See, Smokey thinks I'm funny.
Welcome back to Under Center with Jake Russell. I'm your host, Collin Sheffield. Beside me for the second segment is Coach Matt Atwood. Coach Atwood, always great to see you. Always love being down there on the field pregame. You're locked in. You're a different man down there. It seems like sometimes you are so laser focused and ready to go. It's a game time Atwood and then an out on campus Atwood. And I love seeing that game time Atwood.
Yeah, it's fun. I love to compete. And I hate to lose. And, those 10 Saturdays that you get, or 11 if we play an 11th game, or playoff games, it's fun to wake up and know, all right, it's all that we put in, all that work. I'm not going to be the reason that we're losing, or, I'm not going to be the reason we're not intense and ready to play. I don't probably say a lot of words prior to the game starting other than just small interactions with the guys. I love to compete. I can't wait for those 10 days of my year. I feel like I work and grind all those other days to make those 10 days count. And I absolutely live in the moment and love it.
When you played here as a player, were you the same way pregame and like headed into a game?
To an extent, but as a player, I needed to be just a little bit more lively and just a little bit more relaxed, right? As a coach, I feel like I got to be a lot more like focused on being able to go from, man, I'm bringing that energy that the guys need to, all right, I'm coming right back down to think and process information. As a player, I wanted to be more up here. So it was a lot different mentality-wise. As a player, I was having just fun. I wasn't trying to think and process as much information. I was just trying to have fun and, play football and get after it and do my job as a receiver. But as a coach, it's a lot different mentality. I got to definitely be intense and have that energy, but I also got to be able to flip that switch and, think and see what's happening and process information and do everything that, the defensive coaches need me to do, Coach Ford and Coach Gribbs up in the box and, me and Coach Owens on the field.
Do you feel like you ever have to maybe change your style at times with whoever you bring in? Because, we talk about an overhaul of the defense this year. There's only 4 returning starters. Of course, we got a lot of guys that came back from a second and third string role or from injury last year. We're very deep, but a lot of new guys. Do you ever feel like you have to change the approach on game day for the newer guys?
On game day, not as much. On game day, I'm going to be who I am. I can only kind of really coach one way. But I do kind of tailor certain guys and how I talk to them. I'm very personal with my group and the defensive guys and knowing, who responds well to what, right? If there's, Tyler Ballard really responds well to, my fiery personality and, that in your face, like, let's go. Tyler loves that. And other guys, need me to talk to them in a different way and, that's totally okay. So each personality is a little different, right? All those guys are super talented and great athletes and great football players. It's just my job to make sure that they play their best those 10 days.
So I briefly mentioned the defense being a little bit different this year. An absolute stellar defense last year, only giving up about 16 points a game.
Yeah.
That's tops of the NAIA. Now you come in, you bring in a couple big impact transfers, and we've already seen that in last game with Chase Maynard and Darius Willis.
Yeah.
How's it like having some of those guys come in and fit right into that crew?
They're awesome. Both of those guys are loved by their teammates and very well respected. Their teammates know exactly what they're going to be every day. How you seen D. Will at fiery and running around is exactly how he is on Tuesday's practice like today. The only difference is, he won't be cutting people in half at practice today, we hope. But Chase Maynard, the way that he practices and competes and gets after it every day, it's exactly how he played. That punch out that he had going down toward their left to right goal line from us, or right to left there, he's done that 2 or 3 times in practice, that exact same play. So it was just a great testament in film yesterday, showing our guys, look, this is how he did it in practice. he does it exactly like that in the game. And, you know, those guys are, you know, Chase Maynard's a 1%er of humans, you know, just his demeanor and, you know, his character and things like that. And then you pair it with a guy like Ellis Reed and, you know, Zamari Bell and Christian Davis and Jacoby McGill. And then that group is just fierce, you know. And then Labella comes off the bench and has a huge 4th down breakup while Chase needed a little blow there. And, you know, that crew is really special, and that defense is going to be special. You know, they're still kind of getting their feet under them, you know, and that was a top-tier quarterback, you know, and he definitely was going to get his at times. But we did what we needed to do. We got the win, and at the end of the day, you know, we'll worry about stats and things like that at the end of the season. 1-0, and that's what mattered, getting out of there with the win. And, you know, that guy's special, though. That quarterback was good. But
it was.
Yeah.
He was able to sling it anywhere on the field, and he had some really good receivers as well.
Yeah.
And that up-tempo offense kind of seemed to give the Tigers a little bit of fits at times where it really gave them a lot of momentum. What was maybe the game plan to try to slow that down or just to kind of let them do their thing?
Well, we're going to see some similar styles later, so I'm going to hold a couple cards.
Okay.
But, you know, we were prepared and knew that they were going to be a tempo team. We made a few adjustments on the sideline to kind of slow that and hamper it just a little bit better, you know, with subs and different things like that. But they definitely got a couple quick snaps on us, and on film it's like we weren't ready to play and we still were able to get big stops, you know, a yard or 2 gains. You know, the biggest thing was it's hard to simulate that with your scout team and how quick they can get up there and run an actual play versus, you know, we're trying to get up there and run a play in scout. It's not as fluid as that. So seeing it game 1 was awesome because we're going to see that later on throughout the year. So we'll be ready for it. You know, our guys really didn't appear to be exhausted or gassed or tired. We were just making a few tactical adjustments as we went through and making a few mistakes, you know, here or there, but we'll get those cleaned up and, you know, we would be ready for that tempo.
So we always talk about game 1 is kind of your learning curve, right?
Yeah.
So you think you have something from spring and fall and camp and all of that. You think this is what you're getting. Game 1 tells you this is what you've got. What do you think you've got?
Crazy speed. You know, we're crazy fast. We're very physical. Our team played with, you know, just an awesome chip on their shoulder. Both sides of the ball, we looked really fast on that field. You know, our receivers and Q, O-line, running backs, you know, I thought they did a great job of controlling the game and getting after St. Francis, building us that early lead, and then defensively we were able to protect that. But, man, our defense, we're excited about who we're going to be, and, you know, watching film yesterday was a lot of fun, and, you know, seeing, man, 1 or 2 more plays, and, okay, that's a 14-point game, 1 or 2 more plays, it might be, you know, a 10, they might have 10 or 7, you know, and they're probably on their side thinking 1 or 2 more plays and they win. So, you know, great college football games are going to come down to 1 or 2 stops here or there, 1 or 2 scores, 1 or 2 third down conversions. You know, happily we made the ones we needed to make and live to tell the story and play another day. You know, that's a playoff type atmosphere. It felt like a playoff game. You know, even in pregame it felt like that. So it was great for our kids. You know, big kudos to Coach Russ and, you know, our administrators and, you know, their coach and administrators for scheduling a top-tier matchup like that week 1 when you know you're probably going to have some things you need to clean up, but it was awesome. We're thrilled to get the win and, you know, move on to the next week.
Well, Coach, big game against Weber, so I'll let you get back to the prep for it.
Yeah.
And thank you for sitting down with us.
Appreciate it, man. We're excited to make that trip down there and, you know, play in the sun. Can't wait.
When we come back, we'll sit down with Coach Russ and talk about the upcoming matchup with Weber here on the CU Sports Network.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. So if you want to talk to your kids, you have to get it trending.
No, you're doing it wrong.
Can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
Visit talkaboutvaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
Welcome back to the final segment of Under Center with Jake Russell. I'm your host, Collin Sheffield, back in the hot seat, head coach Jake Russell. Coach Russell, you got a game against Weber. It's a long road trip. Obviously, the buses are going to have to load up on a Thursday, head all the way down to Florida and Babson Park, and take on a team that really turned it on at the end of last year and became a team that, you know, would help make a case as to why you should maybe play in the playoffs. Now this year, they're already starting with an FCS win over Stetson, just the 10th NAIA team to ever beat a FCS team. And they did it in a fashion that was a little odd. If you looked at the box score, I don't think you could tell me that it was 31-21. They were outgained by like 300 yards offensively, but it didn't matter. 2 defensive touchdowns, 3 turnovers overall. Their defense seemed to be the star.
Yeah, Coach Pooch, Coach Speak, those guys that have been there a long time. I had the fortune of coaching with those guys for a year when I coached there in 2019. They've always done a great job with the defense. Even when I played at Campbellsville and we played them, they beat us my senior year, and their defense really played a huge role in that. And so, you know, they have an identity and a style where they want to play great defense. They want to run the ball well. They want to play that very physical type game, force turnovers. That was the difference in the game. They scored on defense. They got multiple turnovers, a lot of negative plays they created. And so those are going to be huge challenges for us this week. Obviously, as you mentioned, the road trip. We got to practice this road trip last year. So how the schedule worked out in the new agreement with the Sun Conference, you know, we're going back for a second year in a row. But we've got a really good travel routine that we've got now where we're leaving on Thursday and practicing at a certain place Thursday night, making the rest of the trip Friday, and then playing. Obviously, the drive back is just one straight shot, so that's not the most fun, but you'll get to watch college football for a lot of that day, and it's always more fun if you can get a win, and this is going to be a big challenge. They're getting better, like you said. They finished in a really high note last year. They've obviously started on a really high note this year. They have a lot of confidence. You know, they're going to have a ton of great athletes and a lot of talent recruiting that area, which was really fun to do when I coached there as well. And this is going to be a great challenge for us because this, again, is going to maybe simulate something we'll have to do hopefully in November and December where we're traveling to Florida or to Texas or somewhere that's a 2-day trip away and having to go and get a win.
Now, it has been hot here before. You all have practiced in it, have had to turn things around and change practice around because it's been so hot. But they always say Florida heat's a little bit different. How do you go about trying to prep your guys for that kind of Florida heat in early September?
Yeah, we've thought about this all summer and even through fall camp and trying to push our guys out there when it's hot. And, you know, the way we practice and the way we prepare, which, again, I think is a little unique to most or even some, even in season, really helps us prepare for this. You know, we're full pad, 11-on-11, tackling football multiple times a week in season, pushing our guys to the limit each day in practice. And then obviously we're adding in some speed and agility and conditioning and things in there as well to help prep for this. Our weights is huge, right? We full, you know, heavy lift, get after it twice a week. And we felt like last year we handled this trip and that situation really well. There's a guarantee in Florida it's going to be hot. It's probably going to be humid. There's probably going to be some weather, right? And it's going to change really fast. And so all those things are going to be on the plate. And I think our guys are going to be able to handle that really well. But that is certainly probably going to be a factor in the game again this year.
So the game plan moving forward, you know, you have a guy like Trent Grochin who so far, you know, they had Tyler Scarborough last year on the run game who I think had over 100 yards. But now it seems like Grochin kind of took over the lead in running. he's kind of becoming a little bit of a dual threat for us.
Yeah, QB run game is just the ultimate equalizer when you can do it. Urban Meyer was one of the best at it at Ohio State and Florida. And it just basically always gives you equal or plus numbers in the box because your running back or multiple guys there, H-back, tight end included, become blockers, right? And so when you can do that, it's extremely difficult to defend. That's going to be a huge challenge for us. But he also can throw the ball. I mean, he performed pretty well against us last year. He's now got a lot of experience under his belt. He knows how to run their offense, and that's going to be a great challenge for us. So this has been a good test for us early in the season. Obviously facing one very unique style with really good quarterback play in week 1, and now a little bit of a different style, but also really good quarterback play in week 2. So I know Coach Ford and the defense are juiced up, and they've got a little chip on their shoulder this week, which we want.
So your guys went on the road this past week, a kind of a 5-6 hour bus ride up to Fort Wayne. Now you're headed down there, 2 long road trips, kind of back to back. How has this week looked for you all in preparation? Has anything had to change because of longer road trips, or have you been able to keep it mostly similar on the same schedule?
Yeah, everything will stay the same through Wednesday. And then obviously our goal is to get our second workout of the weekend before we leave. We're actually still sorting that out, whether we can do it early Thursday morning, which was the approach we took last year, late Wednesday night, which could be a possibility. We're also trying to make sure we're servicing and developing and doing a great job with our futures group, the guys that don't travel, right? Because they're not going to get their Thursday practice, which is where they play their futures bowl each week and get their game. Their extra lift a week is usually on Friday, so they're going to miss that this week. So we're handling all those things. Again, we went through this routine a few times and trying to handle that in a great job where we're not just taking care of the 60 guys that are going to travel, but the other 80 guys in our program who won't travel, and making sure the travel is smooth and handling that adversity. Bus could have issues, restaurants could have issues, hotels could have issues, players can have issues on the trip, coaches, whatever it is. And all those things are just part of it. And again, it's learning how to handle those things because hopefully we are minimum taking a long road trip to Texas in December.
So I asked Coach Atwood what he thought he took away from week 1 and what he learned about his team. What did you learn about yours?
We have the potential to be so good. Offensively, defensively, I was so proud of special teams. Kicking game was a difference in that game. Obviously, Collin and Aline, and then Ben Banks is our new long snapper. He's been a multi-time all-conference long snapper in the MSC, and nobody thinks about the long snapper until they make a bad snap. So I hope nobody outside of our program thinks about Ben all year, right? Because he's just on the money, and the operation is very smooth, the kicking smooth. Solomon Stonebreaker's a true freshman. He's actually holding our kicks this year, so that's been a change, and that was awesome. Just making all the PATs, and the field goal turned out to be the difference. Obviously, Aline, just phenomenal game, touchbacks, great punts. He caused the fumble with that great punt, and we were able to recover. I think Darius got that one. So that's been a huge difference. So we can be elite in all 3 phases of the game and accomplish all of our goals. But we did not play elite in game 1. Great win, average performance. So now can we go and actually put a great performance out there in all 3 phases on Saturday? And obviously that's why you practice, and that's the challenge to our guys this week.
Coach, thank you for coming in and sitting down with us and talking. Look forward to seeing you down in Florida.
Absolutely. Glad to be there, and then we'll be glad to be home for 6 straight weeks.
Always good to be at home, but the Tigers are on the road this week, so you can catch that game against Weber and Babson Park on 88.7 The Tiger or on the TuneIn app. You just look up WLCU and 88.7, and you can find myself and Khalil Baker on that call. And as always, thank you for tuning in to Under Center with Jake Russell.